There are not many countries in the world that have such striking differences between life in a major city and in a quaint small town like Scotland. If you ask a Scotsman about his opinion on life in a city like Edinburgh or Glasgow versus life in a small town like Dunblane or Stromness, probably you'll hear some extreme opinions. And that is remarkable, since Scottish people tend to be moderate, unless we talk about a certain football derby. Because yes, depending on where you live in Scotland, for £230,000 you can buy an elegant 5-bedroom stone manor like this one, or a tiny 1-bedroom flat like this here. If you ever thought about living in Scotland, choosing between cities and towns could be the most important decision you make. Today we'll discover the pros, cons of each lifestyle choice, and by the end of this video I'll tell you 2 places that have the remarkable quality of uniting the best characteristics for both large cities and small towns. So let's start with the pros and cons of living in Scotland's largest cities, namely Glasgow and Edinburgh, because those are the only ones with more than 500,000 people. The first pro of these 2 major cities is the access to advanced healthcare. Those 2 cities offer state-of-the-art healthcare facilities. Edinburgh is home to the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, while Glasgow has the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. Both are among the best in Europe. Those cities also have a higher concentration of GPs, general practitioners, pharmacies, and private healthcare options. Another very impressive feature of both Glasgow and Edinburgh, especially for Americans, is the quality of the public transport. Glasgow offers the most extensive public transport network in Scotland, making it highly convenient for retirees. The city has a Glasgow subway, a circular underground system often called the Clockwork Orange, with 15 stations across key areas like the city centre and West End. Edinburgh, meanwhile, has a tram system, which runs from Edinburgh Airport to the city centre, passing through major areas such as Haymarket and Murrayfield. Lothian buses operate extensive bus services with over 50 routes across neighbourhoods and nearby towns. Will you need a car in those cities? Well, this is what a local told us. Open quote. In Glasgow, it's generally okay to not have a car. Some places are terrible for parking, so you might be even better off without a car. End quote. The next pro of those 2 big cities in Scotland is something that often people neglect. But if you are a foreigner, this thing is actually important. And I'm talking about the social and cultural events that give you opportunity to socialize. Edinburgh is in fact known as the festival city, while Glasgow is known as the UK's music capital. These cities also offer community groups, hobby clubs, and recreational centers, where you can build connections and engage in activities suited to your interests. Libraries, cinemas, theaters, and sport facilities are easily accessible. So living in a Scottish metropolis like Glasgow or Edinburgh offers vibrancy and convenience, but at what cost? And that is when we start with the not-so-good part of living in a large city. Edinburgh and Glasgow are significantly more expensive than the rest of the country. The average monthly rent for a 1-bedroom flat in Edinburgh is £850, compared to £450 to £600 in smaller cities like Perth or Inverness. Property prices are also much higher. For example, in Edinburgh, a 3-bedroom apartment in areas like Newtown or Bransfield can go over £600,000. This is more than twice the price in the towns I will show you in a few minutes. A former resident from Glasgow told us that, open quote, living in Glasgow for about 10 years. My rent has doubled in that time, and despite my salary increasing, I have less disposable income. I managed to save and do okay, but I made the decision to move to Kilmarnock recently to save more. End quote. Then there are also the higher crime rates. Glasgow was also known as the murder capital of Britain. Things now are much better. I even made an entire video about the improvements in safety Glasgow experienced. But still, when you check the map of the most crime-hit places in Scotland, the 3 largest cities in the country stand out on the map. In 2023, Edinburgh had 51 crimes per 1,000 people, and Glasgow had 59 crimes per 1,000 compared to 35 in Perth and 37 in Inverness, 2 smaller cities. In city centres like Glasgow's Merchant City or Edinburgh's Old Town, theft and pickpocketing are common. The third problem of moving to Scotland to live in a large city might be counterintuitive, but it's the limited housing availability. And this is counterintuitive because technically, a large city should have a larger range of housing options, but the problem is that Edinburgh and Glasgow also have a huge demand for roofs. In Edinburgh, the surge for short-term rentals like Airbnb has reduced the availability of long-term housing. Glasgow faces similar rental issues, particularly in sought-after neighborhoods like West End, Hillhead, and Finiston. As of 2023, the monthly rental for a one-bedroom apartment in central Edinburgh is easily over £1,100, and the same is valid for the West End of Glasgow. For those who want to buy a property, a townhouse in Glasgow might cost £500,000. In some districts of Edinburgh, two-bedroom flats typically cost between £350,000 and £450,000. Short-term rentals are not the only reason there's a shortage of properties in these cities. Limited housing availability is also driven by high demand from younger demographics who move out from smaller cities to study or to work in the metropolis. But wait, why are young people moving out from smaller cities? Are smaller towns and villages in Scotland that bad? Not really. And for some people, they can actually be a great place. Time to understand the pros of living in smaller cities instead of Edinburgh or Glasgow. The first one is the most obvious one: lower housing costs and larger homes. And to enjoy these lower costs, you don't even need to look for villages in the middle of nowhere. In mid-sized cities like Dundee, Perth, or Inverness, housing prices are much lower. For example, as of 2023, the average cost for a two-bedroom house in Perth is around £170,000 compared to over £300,000 in Edinburgh suburbs. Dundee has even more affordable options, with average property prices around £140,000 for similar homes. Homes in smaller towns often come with larger living spaces and outdoor areas. In Perthshire, many properties include gardens or even larger plots of land, a feature rarely found in city flats. But not only the housing costs are lower. In these smaller cities, there is a reduced overall cost of living, and that includes things like leisure or basic services like a haircut. Want to drink a beer at the nearby pub? In Edinburgh, you need to pay more than £5. Meanwhile, in Dundee, the average price for a pint of beer is just £3.84, and in Perth it's even less, £3.65, so almost 30% cheaper. But cheaper housing, cheaper beer, and a cheaper haircut are not the only advantages of living in a smaller city. They also provide you with a slower pace of living, which for some is really attractive. Daily errands are less stressful, with shorter queues in shops and quieter public spaces, even if sometimes the distances are bigger. In these smaller cities, due to the houses being more sparsely distributed, the fact that there is no traffic makes commuting much faster. For example, Stirling, a city with almost 38,000 residents, has an average commute time below 15 minutes, significantly less than the 30-plus minutes common in Edinburgh or Glasgow. This time that you save, you can spend on things that really matter, like watching a game of the local team in the nearby pub. And lastly, these smaller cities are safer. Cities like Inverness, Perth, and Stirling report crime rates of 35 to 40 incidents per 1,000 residents annually. As I said before, this is much lower than Glasgow, with 59 incidents per 1,000 residents, or Edinburgh with 51 incidents per 1,000. Violent crimes are also much less common in these smaller urban areas. In Stirling, violent crime incidents were recorded at 3.4 per 1,000 people in 2023, compared to 11.2 per 1,000 in Glasgow. But be aware that the lower costs, the bigger gardens, the cheaper beer, and the safer neighborhoods also come with a cost. Not really financial in this case, but in terms of infrastructure. See, there are things that we take for granted in bigger cities that are not always present in villages. High-speed internet, for example. While mid-sized cities like Dundee have reliable internet, more rural locations such as Forres or Aberfeldy may not offer consistent high-speed broadband. According to a 2023 report on UK broadband, only 82% of households in rural Scotland have access to speeds above 30 megabytes per second. Another issue is the lack of public transportation. You have sparse bus routes. Services are infrequent and may not operate late into the evening. For instance, local routes operated by Stagecoach often run only a few times per day. Many countryside towns also lack direct train services, For example, Aberfeldy requires a 30-minute drive to the nearest station, Pitlochry. This adds a layer of inconvenience for retirees who enjoy day trips or need to travel to larger city for medical appointments or shopping. But of all these negative sides of living in a small town or village, the most surprising is the heating issue. Yes, you heard it right. The first issue is the higher cost of heating due to an older infrastructure. Many places do not have a supply of heating gas. So these homes in smaller towns, particularly older ones, rely on oil-fired heating systems instead of natural gas. As of 2023, the cost of heating oil is approximately 100 to 120 pounds per month during winter, compared to around 70 to 90 pounds for gas, so your heating bills in this case are quite higher. The next issue is the potential for service disruptions. Remote towns like Kingusi may experience heating or power outages during severe weather. Storms can delay the delivery of heating oil or repairs to power lines, leaving residents without heat for extended periods. Lastly, there is the issue of energy efficiency. Although this is not exclusive to small towns, it might also happen in older buildings located in big cities. Older homes may not be well insulated, leading to higher energy bills. Residents might need to invest in home upgrades such as double glazing to reduce heating expenses, but don't let these negative aspects scare you. Because remember at the beginning of this video when I told you that I would show you two places in Scotland that have a remarkable characteristic of putting together the best aspects from both large cities and small towns? Before I show you these two places, I would like to ask a small favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. So the first city I want to tell you about is Stirling. Located in central Scotland, Stirling serves as a bridge between the lowlands and the highlands. It is located around 58 kilometers northwest of Edinburgh and 42 kilometers northeast of Glasgow, making it well connected to Scotland's major cities. Stirling has a population of approximately 37,000, so it's a small city, but it's big enough to find many of the conveniences you need. Very close is the Forth Valley Royal Hospital in Lowbat, providing comprehensive services. There are also plenty of local doctors and pharmacies easily accessible. Another good point is the city's central location, making it a transport hub. The Stirling railway station has frequent connections to Glasgow, 45 minutes, or Edinburgh, 50 minutes, while local buses connect Stirling to nearby villages. Outdoor enthusiasts can enjoy Kings Park and the walking trails of the Backwalk, which is regarded as one of Europe's finest urban walkways. This is what a local told us about the city. Open quote, "I live in Stirling. It's great that it's the gateway to the Highlands. In a matter of minutes, you can be out on a country walk. The train and bus services are very good and regular, and you can be in Glasgow, Edinburgh, or Dundee in under an hour. The historical culture is so intertwined with its modern aspects. The people are friendly too." End quote. Another pro of Stirling is that it's one of Scotland's safest cities, and it has a low crime rate of just 35 incidents per 1,000 residents. If all these advantages are not enough, wait until you discover the price of housing in Stirling and how much cheaper it is if you compare to Edinburgh. There, you can rent a flat in the city centre for £800 or less. In Edinburgh, a similarly centrally located apartment costs £1,150, so at least close to 50% more. If you prefer to buy a house and have a budget of £200,000, around $250,000, in Stirling you can buy a spacious 3-bedroom house with a terrace. In Edinburgh, for such a price, you buy just a 1-bedroom flat. Huge difference, right? But there is another city that might be even better than Stirling. It's Perth. Located in eastern Scotland, Perth lies on the banks of the River Tay, 72 kilometers north of Edinburgh and 96 kilometers northeast of Glasgow. With a population of almost 47,000 people, it's slightly bigger than Stirling. Since it's bigger than Stirling, the offer of public services in Perth is also more robust. The healthcare infrastructure, for example, is ensured by the Perth Royal Infirmary, which offers a range of medical services, including care for older adults. The Perth railway station offers connections to Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Inverness, and Perth is also one of the central hubs of the large bus network from CityLink. If we talk about leisure, well, for a city of its size, Perth really shines. The Perth Concert Hall hosts live performances, while the Perth Museum and Art Gallery features local history and art. Outdoor activities include walking along the River Tay or relaxing in North Inch Park, both of which offer serene and scenic environments. This is what a local told us about Perth. Open quote. Perth is a lovely place, large enough to get entertainment, nice restaurants and shopping, but close to beautiful countryside. End quote. The most interesting thing is that, despite being bigger than Stirling, Perth is even cheaper. There you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment located a short walk from the city center for just £550 per month, less than half the price of cities like Glasgow or Edinburgh. If you prefer to buy a place, let's consider that you have the same housing budget of £200,000 that we used for example of Stirling. In Perth, you can buy a 3-bedroom terraced villa in a peaceful cul-de-sac in the popular Western Edge district of the city. It's a fine price to live in a city that is small enough to avoid the soul-crushing gridlock of bigger cities, but big enough to have everything you need. Heather Resdale told us, open quote, Perth is the Goldilocks zone of Scotland. It's not too much, not too little. It's just right, end quote. But Scotland is not the only place in Europe where an American can retire without the need to learn a new language. In this video, I talked about a certain island that attract a lot of eyes. They have some peculiar advantages. To discover what I'm talking about, check this video here on your left.